Madam Speaker, Aljunied GRC is one of the largest GRCs in Singapore. It has more than 150,000 residents, mainly living in 3 4-room HDB flats. Honest people, they work hard to raise their families, make a living, pay their service and conservancy charges every month. They trusted the Workers' Party with their hard-earned money. The AGO report raises serious questions about the conduct of the AHPETC town councillors and what they did with the money of the honest residents of Aljunied, Hougang, and Punggol East. There are 4 major questions that arise from the facts which have come out. 1, the AGO report makes clear that the AHPETC town councillors allowed millions of dollars to be paid to related parties. In breach of their legal fiduciary duties, the payments were unlawful. 2, these payments were done without transparency or accountability. There was no full and frank disclosure of the facts, and there was no discussion of the conflicts of interests. 3, the AHP Town Council suffered a loss because of the payments to the related parties. I will refer to the AHPETC as the Town Council. 4, what is the responsibility of each of the town councillors for these payments? What did each of them know? What role did each play in paying monies to the related parties? Let me deal with each of these 4 points. First, on the payment of the millions to related parties. On the 8th of May 2011, the Workers' Party won Aljunied. 7 days later, on the 15th of May 2011, a husband and wife, Mr. Low and Ms. Howe, set up a company, FMSS. Low also owned a sole proprietorship, FMSI. The Town Council gave the MA contract to FMSS in 2011. The Town Council also gave 3 more contracts to FMSS over the years. The total value of the contracts was about $27 million. Ms. Howe became the general manager and Mr. Low the secretary of the Town Council. Another FMSS shareholder, Mr. Yo, became the deputy general manager of the Town Council. One has to ask, Ms. Howe and Yo were employees of the Hougang Town Council. They could have been employed by AHPETC. There was no need to set up a new company to provide services to the Town Council. So why set up FMSS? It was a convenient vehicle to which millions of dollars went from the Town Council. And another obvious question, money that went to FMSS, where did it actually go? What happened to it? The Town Council paid money to FMSS in a number of ways. I will mention 2. First, Madam Speaker, may I ask the clerk to distribute Annex 1?
Yes, please.
This annex will show how payments were made to FMSS and FMSI. If you look through the annex, you will see that Low and Ms. Howe issued the invoices on behalf of FMSS and FMSI. Ms. Howe and Yo, acting on behalf of the Town Council, then certified the work for payment to their own company. Ms. Howe then approved the payment vouchers, checks, to be issued by the Town Council for payment to her own companies, FMSS and FMSI. Low then, on behalf of the Town Council, signed the checks for payment to his companies. The checks were then co-signed either by Ms. Sylvia Lim or Mr. Peng. About $6.6 million was paid out in just one financial year, 2012-2013, in this way. This was the period covered by the AGO audit. I have prepared a table, Annex 2, which sets out the process relating to 84 checks totaling 6.6 million, which was paid out in the financial year 2012-2013. Again, with your permission, Madam Speaker, may I ask for that to be distributed?
Yes, please.
How much would be the total amount paid to FMSS in this way from May 2011 up to now? It will obviously be more than $6.6 million. If similar payments were made in other years, then it won't be much less than $20 million. We don't know the full amount because there has been no audit for the period May 2011 to January 2015. This process is unacceptable. It is also unlawful. It is a common practice across Singapore that when a town council engages a managing agent, a major part of the MA contract is to provide the town council with its key management personnel to supervise the running of the town council day to day. We would thus naturally expect the town council's key management personnel, its secretary, general manager, deputy general managers, to be employees of the MA. M&D does not prohibit this. M&D has allowed it in response to town council's feedback. However, in all these 25 years, in no other town council except AHPETC are the secretary, the general manager, the deputy general managers of the town council are not just employees of the MA, but they are also complete owners of the MA. Their ownership interest and control of the MA is what distinguishes Aljunied Punggol East Town Council from all other town councils. That makes any transaction between the town council and FMSS and FMSI a related party transaction that has to be disclosed under FRS. I heard with some interest Mr. Chen, who has considerable experience, saying there are no standards. I think Mr. Chen has overlooked the FRS. The FRS sets out what ought to be disclosed. The only difference is that Aljunied acted in breach of the FRS. Everybody else complied with the FRS. So there are no new standards to look for. The standards are there. One just has to follow the rules. The ownership and control of the managing agent in the case of AHPETC is what distinguishes that town council from all other town councils. That makes any transaction between the town council and FMSS or FMSI a related party transaction. And under the FRS, if someone is a general manager or secretary of the town council and at the same time employed by the MA, that is not considered a related party transaction unless that person has control or joint control of the managing agent. In all other town councils, no one had such control. And the auditors raised no queries. For AHPETC, its own auditors raised queries, which the town council refused to answer. This is not a question of negligence. This is not a question of inexperience. When employees don't own the MA, they cannot be said to have a serious personal financial interest in each such transaction. But with AHPETC, the position was different. The managing agent was owned by Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo. The payments they were verifying and approving on behalf of the town council were going directly into their pockets. This is not a theoretical conflict of interest. It is a real conflict. Husband and wife issuing invoices on behalf of their own company. They were often verifying on behalf of the town council the work done by themselves. They were also certifying on behalf of the town council the payments to their own companies. The wife was then approving on behalf of the town council the checks for payment to their own companies. And the husband was then signing the town council checks for payments to themselves. I think Mr. Chen will accept this is unacceptable. You don't need an FRS to know that this is contrary to the law. This arrangement was designed deliberately. It was not accidental. It is with a husband and wife team who are hardcore supporters of the Workers' Party, close to some of the Workers' Party town councillors. They must have been highly trusted. They were the center and proposer for the Workers' Party in the general elections of 2006. The conflict of interest is apparent, real, and serious. No town councillor who knew of this structure could have approved this structure lawfully. It is not capable of being approved in law. It is unlawful. And it would have been a serious breach of fiduciary duties for any town councillor to have approved this process. During the AGO audit, the town council responded on this related party transaction. It said, well, most of the payments were pre-agreed by contract. That's what Ms. Lim told this House today as well. And the checks were countersigned by the chairman or vice chairman. With respect, these are non-answers. The payments may have been pre-agreed by contract, but were the services being provided, let alone provided properly? Payments are being made for services. Who was checking on the services for which the millions were being paid? And the checks being countersigned. What does that mean? What were the checks done for each payment? It is all quite unacceptable and unlawful. When pointed out, instead of accepting that this is unlawful and unacceptable, there is now an attempt to confuse and evade. So serious questions remain unanswered on payment. I have said I will highlight two ways in which payments were made to FMSS amongst several. Let me deal with the second way in which the town council was run for the benefit of FMSS. That was by inflating the MA fees paid to FMSS. The town council decided to pay significantly higher MA fees to FMSS compared with all other town councils. The total MA fees paid by the town council to FMSS was nearly $22 million over 4 years. Madam Speaker, may I ask for Annex 3 to be handed out, please?
Yes, please.
A comparison of the managing agent rates in Singapore for 2014-2015 will be shown in this table. It's quite an important table. Members will be shocked by it, and therefore I'll wait for it to be distributed before I continue. If you look at this, you can see from this annex that FMSS charges the town council $14.92 for each commercial unit, compared with between $4.80 and $6.65 for all other town councils. Is this inexperience? Is this oversight? Is this a case for playing the victim, coming here and saying we are all victims of a political conspiracy? This is what you decided to pay. Small businesses in Aljunied were charged much more to pay FMSS. Likewise, FMSS charged the town council $7.43 for every residential unit. Others charged between $4.80 and $6.65. And from July 2014, FMSS increased its rates even more. The rates are now $15.82 and $7.88. The commercial unit rates, managing agents' fees, are now more than double what everyone else has charged. If you take the weighted average of MA fees paid by other town councils, it is $5.72 per unit for both residential and commercial units. The difference, therefore, on an annual basis between what the town council paid FMSS and what others pay their managing agents is about $1.6 million every year. That's not the profit, that is just the difference. Obviously, everybody else makes a profit too. So this 1.6 million is on top of the profit that FMSS was making. You can compare the rates any way you like. Weighted average, you can compare it with Tampines, which is comparable. You can compare it with Choa Chu Kang, which has got similar number of units. Whatever way you slice it, Aljunied pays far more to FMSS. What justifies this? The rhetoric from the Workers' Party is always about helping the poor man. The reality is that the Workers' Party took money from the man in the street to give to their friends in FMSS. Mr. Lau, Ms. Lim keep saying there's been no loss. Maybe there was no one taking money through the back door in the dark of the night. There was no need because the money was taken from the front door in broad daylight. Through all this overcharging, $6.4 million over 4 years on this calculation, overcharging on managing agents' fees. Another $6.6 million taken out in just 1 year through an unlawful process. There might be an overlap between the two sums because part of the 6.6 million would be for MA fees. And there must have been much more. I will now deal with the second major problem arising from the facts, which is lack of transparency, lack of disclosure. Ask yourself, should the full facts have been disclosed to all the town councillors? Should the process have been discussed? Should the risks have been considered? Should the safeguards have been thought about? The answers to these questions might appear obvious. The behavior of a party which claims to champion transparency and accountability was shocking. First, the facts do not seem to have been fully disclosed to all the town councillors. And second, there seems to have been no proper discussion of the conflicts at all. Let me deal with the non-disclosure first. If you look again at Annex 1 that was handed out earlier, the fact that Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo owned FMSS, that is obviously important. You would expect it to be disclosed and discussed at a town council meeting. But strangely, there are no minutes of town council meeting where any such disclosure is recorded. Instead, it gets very curious. The minutes show that within August and September 2011, the town councillors were given limited disclosure. They were only told that Low and Ms. Howe were directors and employees of FMSS. Very odd. It was felt necessary to tell the rest of the town councillors that Ms. Howe and Low were directors and employees of FMSS, but not reveal the more important fact that they were not just employees and directors, but also the owners of FMSS. PwC asked the town council, why was there no record of Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo's ownership being discussed at a town council meeting? And the town council says, oh, everyone knew the ownership structure of FMSS. Really? Every town councillor knew? Then why did the town council make the curious decision to only record that they were directors and employees and not record their ownership of FMSS and FMSI? What was there to hide about the ownership? Why record only some of the less important facts and omit the most important fact? And there is no reference whatsoever in the minutes to FMSI that it was owned by Low. FMSI got contracts worth $29,400 per month for 5 years, October 2007 to June 2012. and Lowe's ownership was not mentioned or recorded. Obviously, some of the town councillors would have known that Lowe and Ms. Howe owned FMSS. Could Ms. Sylvia Lim not have known? She was the chairman of the town council. So did she tell the other town councillors? What exactly did she tell? Were the ownership details recorded, revealed? Beyond this limited disclosure, there is nothing else in the town council minutes. And over the years, there was no further disclosure of interests. Nothing. Despite the many contracts and millions that were given to FMSS and FMSI. Now let me deal with the second major problem on transparency, which is the discussion on conflicts, or rather, the absence of discussion on conflicts. Surprisingly, there is no record of any discussion whatsoever by the town council on the process that you see in Annex 1, where they pay themselves. That almost every aspect of the payment process would be controlled by FMSS. Nothing disclosed, nothing discussed. Again, some town councillors must have known about the process, and they must have approved it. Could Ms. Sylvia Lim, as chairperson, not have known? Why did she not discuss it with all the other town councillors? There is no record that she did so. In response to queries by the Pricewaterhouse as part of the AGO audit, what response did the town council give? Just guess. Instead of answering the questions, they said, this is not within your remit to ask. That is an evasion. It is not an answer. The auditor asks you serious questions, and your response is, you're not entitled to ask me these questions. Why doesn't the town council give proper answers instead of playing hide and seek? What are you hiding? This is not negligence. It is active decision to suppress. It raises the issue of integrity. The issue of integrity is raised right through. This pattern of non-disclosure and murkiness has been a constant and troubling feature. As we saw, the town council minutes suggest that the town councillors were not given full details on FMSS. Or if they were given the details, then someone decided that only the less important parts will be recorded. 2, there seems to have been no discussion at town council meetings of the actual process. There is no record that this took place, how FMSS would be supervised, how the risks will be mitigated. 3, the town council's own auditors, Fukon and Tan, queried them on the transactions with FMSS. Town council failed to answer them. As a result, Fukon and Tan qualified the audit reports and said, and I quote, the town council had not made available to us details of the project management service fees paid to a related party. Accordingly, we are unable to determine the completeness of the related party disclosures. These are your own auditors. You refuse to give information to your own auditors, and you keep talking about transparency. And the town council failed to disclose details of the contracts with FMSS in its financial year 2012-2013 accounts. And so the report had to say, AHPETC did not disclose fully the related party transactions in its financial statements. That was in breach of the Singapore Financial Reporting Standards. Again, Mr. Chen, the rules are all there. You just need to comply with them. The FRS requires disclosure of related party transactions in financial statements. The pattern of non-disclosure is obvious. And the town council also refused to give details to Pricewaterhouse, which was requested as part of the AGO audit. I quote from the AGO report, "We noted that AHPETC has entered into a number of related party transactions whereby substantial sums were paid to related parties in financial year 2012-2013. The Town Council, despite repeated requests, did not provide us with all the critical documents relating to these transactions." And I quote again, "Since the commencement of our review in April 2014, we have made various requests for documents from AHPETC as part of our review of selected transactions. In our view, these documents, such as documents which record the proper disclosure and consideration of RPTs, ought to exist as a matter of record. Notwithstanding numerous requests and reminders, AHPETC did not provide a number of the requested documents. Right through active, persistent non-disclosure, obviously deliberate. And the consequence of all of this, of the millions that were paid to FMSS, who knows how much was justifiable? That brings me to the third of the four major issues that I said are highlighted, and that is the monies lost by the Town Council. Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Lau have been quick to say that despite all the problems, no Town Council money has been lost. Really? Can she or anyone else honestly say that no monies have been lost? When the town councillors acted in breach of their fiduciary duties and paid low and how millions of dollars, that's not a loss to the town council? Overpayment to a related party is not a loss? It's really a strange statement from Ms. Lim. The house is burning, and she is standing in front of it and says, "You know, there has been no loss." Is it possible that she does not recognize loss even when it's staring before her face? Let us try and put a number on the monies that have been paid to FMSS in breach of fiduciary duties. First, the MA fees of $22 million. As we saw earlier, the overcharging could be $6.4 million, perhaps more. That is the overpayment by the town council to FMSS. Is that not a loss? Add in other amounts which were paid to FMSS without any adequate check or control, $6.6 million in 1 year. 4 years, what would the figure be? You get a lot of money paid by the town council to FMSS. So just on these figures, perhaps over 4 years, $20 million. You add the 6.4. Of course, there would be some overlap because part of the 20 million would be part of the MA fees. But that's before you even look at issues like blatant double charging or overcharging. Just one illustration of that. 4 town councillors were asked to look at FMSS fee proposal to provide essential services. Some of the elected MPs must have been on the committee. They briefed the other town councillors on the fee. They told the town councillors that the fee would be about the same as what was previously charged. Previously charged fee was $49,000 per month. But the 4 town councillors misled the others. FMSS actually charged $67,000 per month. And it was not picked up. They happily paid. This is an oversight. Can it be an oversight? Is it not because of the way FMSS was allowed to operate? Overpayment by more than $120,000 just on one transaction. And was the work done? Who knows? This particular case was exposed quite by chance. If not exposed, the money would not have been repaid. And when it came out, the town council says, "Oh, sorry, we made a mistake." How did the mistake arise? How many other such mistakes which benefited FMSS? The AGO was not asked to do a forensic audit, so they did not check all the items. They only checked the general processes, and even that only for 1 year. So you cannot say, based on AGO audit, that no money was lost. And AGO has made that clear, that you cannot say that. When you set up a system that is so flawed, of course there are going to be serious issues. Let us put this in layman terms. You have a business with cash, valuables belonging to other people. You don't know exactly what you have. You put a friend in charge. They take what they want of the cash. You overpay them several $million. You don't check. Auditors say your accounts are in a mess. The accounts are unreliable. In fact, you say yourself that you can't produce the accounts. Auditors say you have no clear idea of what has happened to the cash. And you come and you say no money is lost. One can only wonder at such a statement. The law takes an extremely strict view on related party transactions when conflicts of interest are involved. The lawyers in this House will know that. When contracts have been entered into with related parties in breach of fiduciary duties, and let there be no doubt, this breach of fiduciary duty is here by everyone. The law presumes loss. It will require the related party to justify every payment by showing what work was done and assessing the true value of the work. The contracts are all voidable. Given all of this, how can Ms. Lim or anyone honestly say no money has been lost? And the money was not lost through accident. The structure was approved by at least some of the town councillors. For your party supporters to form a company and do all of this. This is not a question of negligence or inexperience. You don't need many years of experience to know that you shouldn't let your friends do what they like with public funds. We will only get a full picture of what monies were lost if there was a forensic audit of the town council from May 2011 to January 2015. But you know what? It will be quite easy for the town council to find out how much money exactly FMSS and FMSI made. All you have to do is to ask them to produce their accounts and bank balances. How much were Ms. Howe, Lowe, and Yo paid? How much money did FMSS and FMSI make? Since FMSS is a private exempt company, the accounts are not public. And FMSI is a sole proprietorship. So the rest of us here and the rest of Singapore will not know what they made. The basic point is that while the town council lost money, FMSS and FMSI made money. The town council can find out the answers. Will it do so? Mr. Lau said to this House that the town council had no choice but to appoint FMSS. He played the victim. No one else wanted to tender to be the managing agent for the town council because it is an opposition ward. Lucky to have Ms. Howe to the rescue, he says, because she had some experience from Hougang. When the Workers' Party MPs took over the town council on 8th of May 2011, there was an existing MA contract with CPG. This was due to expire only on 31 July 2013, 2 more years to go. And the contract was such that it could not be terminated by CPG. It could only be terminated by the Workers' Party. The Town Council Act provides for continuity. There was no need to start from scratch. Ms. Sylvia Lim says that CPG asked to let go. Maybe so, but it was up to the Workers' Party whether they wanted to let CPG go. But you had already decided what you wanted. So let us not pretend here. FMSS was set up on the 15th of May 2011, 7 days after the GE. And you decided to replace CPG with FMSS. Ms. Lim has said the discussion on termination started in end of May. That was after you set up FMSS. Taking over was premeditated. To hand over the managing agents to the parties that you wanted to. So stop playing the victim card. You said having Ms. Howe was lucky But I think one can conclude from the AGO report that it has not been so lucky for the residents, seeing how they've been shortchanged. But of course, Ms. Howe and FMSS have been very lucky. They've made more than other managing agents. And as I said, where did the money really go in the end? It will be interesting to find out. Let me now turn to the fourth issue, the responsibility of each of the town councillors for what has happened. Given this sorry state of affairs, it is now time for each town councillor to come clean before this Parliament and before the people of Singapore. Let me start with Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen has said that they will, and I quote, take a rational and responsible approach to town council management. And I quote again, with the interests of the residents high on their minds. Mr. Chen should tell us, did you know that Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo owned FMSS and FMSI? If you did, when did you know? Why was there no discussion at the town council of their ownership of these companies? And why is there no record in the minutes of any such discussions? Did you know that Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo were going to be allowed to supervise themselves and pay themselves as set out in Annex 1? Did you know of the process? Did you know that the amounts involved ran into millions of dollars? Over $6 million in just 1 year, financial year 2012-2013? Did you know that FMSS was being paid very high MA fees, much higher than everyone else? If you didn't know the full facts, Mr. Chen, then there is a partial excuse. Because I think you would agree, if you knew the full facts, you could not have agreed to this structure. No one could reasonably have agreed to it. This cannot be approved in law by anyone acting honestly and with full knowledge of the facts. So the question is, what did you know and when did you know?
He's the chairman of the Finance and Investment Committee.
I am reminded by DPMTO that you are the chairman of the Finance and Investment Committee. Mr. Chan, as a lawyer, you will know that every town councillor owes fiduciary duties, and you know what fiduciary duties means. It will be a gross breach of those fiduciary duties to have allowed Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo to act as they did and rubber stamp what they did. You will be aware that such conduct is unlawful. If a town councillor acts in breach of his fiduciary duties, then legal action can be brought. The town councillors would have acted unlawfully. Mr. Chen, the question is, now that all these details are out, what are you going to do? How are you going to explain to your residents? Let's turn to Mr. Pritam Singh. You are a lawyer. You make fierce speeches about transparency. In May 2011, you said, and I quote, "My friends, the Workers' Party has one important role that we abide by strictly. We will not play politics with the residents of Aljonia GRC by making empty promises to them. If there is one thread that runs through the Workers' Party manifesto, it is the thread of transparency and accountability." You thundered. You have been anything but transparent and accountable. There is a thread, all right, but it weaves and leaves a tangled web. Would you tell us what is your position on each of these questions I've asked? Now let's turn to Ms. Sylvia Lim. You're a chairperson, the chairperson, lawyer. You obviously must have known from the beginning that Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo owned FMSS and FMSI. And you approved the system that was set up. And you rubber-stamped their actions by countersigning the checks. And you don't seem to have ensured that all the relevant facts were made known to all the town councillors. No discussion on how the serious financial conflicts were going to be handled. No discussion on how residents' monies will be protected. Nothing. You must have known that such conduct would be a serious breach of your legal fiduciary duties and that it will be unlawful to do so. Yet you allowed this. You allowed this. And the town council also failed to give documents and information to your own auditors and Pricewaterhouse. The inevitable question is, why did you do all of this? On 13th of May 2013, Ms. Lim, you made a speech in this parliament. You said, you are committed to being accountable to others for town council management, and you strongly defended FMSS, Low, and Ms. Howe. That was the very month, May 2013, that you stopped submitting arrears data to MND. Your town council had submitted it every month until then. You also said that you had and I quote, a team of dedicated professionals to run the town council. And you said, how did we get to this point? We have a team of dedicated professionals with town council experience because for the past 20 years, you Hougang voters have supported us. Because of you, Singaporeans can now see that they have a choice. They can see that it's not only the PAP that can run the town council. And you said, MPs in Singapore manage town councils in HDB estates. Under the Town Councils Act, elected MPs are to manage and improve the common property in the town, which includes roofs, lifts, and other common facilities. A large part of a town council's income comes from the residents by way of SNCC on service and conservancy charges. Town councils also receive government grants which are funded by taxpayers. Being custodians of public monies, MPs should use town council funds to advance the residents' interests and not for partisan advantage. You knew you were custodians of public funds. That is why FMSS and FMSI were allowed to freely transfer public funds to themselves. I beg your pardon? Is that right? I'm sure we'll have your answer to all the questions that we have raised. And I'm sure that's the most parliamentary language you can find. In the course of several months, many questions have been raised about the way the town council's finances have been managed. You refused to answer the questions. Instead, you kept repeating that answers will be given when the AGO report was issued. Now the report has been issued. Will we get honest, direct answers to these questions? And finally, Mr. Lau, Low and Ms. Howe were your friends. They got the contracts because they were your friends. What is your role and responsibility, Mr. Lau? You allowed all of this to happen. As the Secretary General of the Workers' Party, what is your responsibility? Let's now look at what should be done now. Any honest town councillor will admit that all this is unacceptable and will want to set right what has gone wrong, which means coming clean on the facts, re-looking at all the contracts and payments, and recovering all the excesses, the overpayments, and the payments made in breach of fiduciary duties, which means taking legal action where necessary. Will the town councillors do that? Madam Speaker, the AGO report makes for sad reading. They didn't manage the sinking fund. Their data is unreliable. They submitted reports with significant discrepancies, and looks like they're not even able to monitor the overall state of what residents pay in S&CC fees. They don't perform back reconciliations required by the TCFR. They don't properly control receipts and handling of checks. Accounting systems and procedures are inadequate. They don't check on amounts collected, paid out, receivables. Their own auditors, Fukon and Tan, heavily and seriously qualified accounts for financial year 2011-2012 and 2012-2013. And for financial year 2013 and 14, or 2013-14, no audited accounts have been submitted. It's well overdue. Ms. Lim can go on about all of this being rubbish, but you can't run away from the facts. Why are the accounts not here yet? Just give an answer. If you were a listed company, by now your shareholders would have sued you because you collect public funds every month and you have a duty to account to your residents. Basically, your town council is in shambles. It is quite amazing to hear you stand up and say, everything is okay. Your own auditors have qualified your accounts 2 years running, seriously qualified. And you admit yourself that you are not able to submit your accounts for this year. And how can you say everything is okay? Only the audited accounts can show that. The fact that you can't produce accounts shows that there's something seriously wrong. While you stood up to the public and said, we have a team of dedicated professionals who can run the town council, don't worry, and you can't even produce accounts. It is not just a matter of there having been a few lapses on some issues. So many things are so disastrously wrong. There has been a complete dereliction of duties. And this is in addition to the gross breach of fiduciary duties in relation to FMSS and FMSI. You made a conscious decision to appoint your close supporters, Low, Ms. Howe, and Yo, to run the town council. You allowed a setup which allowed monies to be paid to them unlawfully. What does this say of your integrity? In conclusion, I say this to the AHPETC town councillors. Each of you appear to have seriously breached your fiduciary duties. On behalf of the residents of Al Junaid GRC, more than 150,000 of them, hard-working, honest people, we have to ask the Workers' Party to come clean and explain yourselves to the public. Your residents deserve some real, honest answers. Thank you.